Hi everyone, I'm Linda Rourke and welcome to For the Record. Well, Saturday's game in the Junior Football League did not end well. Quite a difference, as a matter of fact. We of course had the Hamilton Hurricanes up against the St. Leonard Cougars. There were about 13 seconds left in the game. Hamilton was ahead 20-9 when about 20 of the players from the Cougars went into the stands and started attacking the spectators. Now, we do have the raw footage, but before we get to that, I'd like to introduce you to people who have joined us here in studio today to talk about what went on. We have Paul Morse, who's a crime reporter for the Spectator, and Scott Radley, who's a sports columnist for the Spectator. So we're going to take a look at this. Now, we were there covering the game. It was on Cable 14. We stopped the game, the recording of the game, I should say, once it got to this level. This is the raw, unedited footage. We'll take a look at it. Now, understand there is no audio to it, but we will show you what went down on Saturday. Now, this was not part of our programming. We had stopped our cameras at this point as far as what was going to air, but we did capture this footage. This again is raw, it's unedited. There's no sound to it, but you can see what was going on. The level that this got to, the number of players that went up into the stands. Now, at this point, it does get pretty crazy. We'll talk about the level of the players' misconduct here, what was going on with our guests in studio. Of course, we have two people from the Spectator joining us, Paul Morse and Scott Radley. We'll talk to them about this in just a few minutes. Again, you are watching the unedited off-camera footage. There is no audio. This was from Saturday's OFC semifinal game at Iverwin Stadium between the Hamilton Hurricanes and the St. Leonard Cougars. About 20 of the Cougars team players went up into the stands, and this is what unfolded. So there you have it. Not nice to see. Now I'll introduce once again our panel that we have here today. We've got Paul Morse, crime reporter for the Spectator, and Scott Radley, sports columnist for the Spectator. Pretty hard to see something like this at the junior level, any level. I shouldn't even just say the junior level, but you know, to see something like this unfold, what is your response to this?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to police today about this. They were called after the game. According to their accounts, they arrived, everything had already finished. But you can actually see from the footage that some senior officers from the Hamilton police were at the game, watching the game on their own time, who weighed in at the end to try to break things up. I understand that the detectives who were sent there to look at this ended up interviewing St. Leonard players, ended up interviewing some of the Hamilton fans who were part of this fracas. And in the end, essentially, nobody wanted to lay a formal complaint, so that's where it stands right now. There is no active investigation ongoing.
So if there is no formal complaint, then the police cannot press charges, is that correct?
Essentially, that's it. It's very difficult to go to court if you don't have a complainant. Now, there are exceptions to that, obviously. In sexual assault, for example, the police, by law, have to lay a charge regardless of whether the victim wants a charge laid or not. But in this case, what it basically boils down to, if nobody wants to lay a formal complaint, is that it's a consensual fight, I guess, the best way to put it.
Now, Scott, let's talk about what we saw there. I mean, it's hard to watch. I'm a parent. My kids are involved with sport at this, you know, at their young ages of 9 and 11. I don't like to see something like this come down. You know, what do you think is going to happen to these players? How will this play out?
Well, we've seen incidents like this in sports before, and it actually probably happens more than we know because these events aren't usually captured by television cameras. We've seen it in the NBA. You go back as far as the 1970s when the Boston Bruins went into the stands. I think it was at Madison Square Garden, and most of the viewers will remember Mike Milbury ripping a shoe off a guy and beating him with his own shoe. The thing about this is that with sports, we've seen fighting on the field or on the ice. We've seen fans fighting in the stands, but there's an assumption, there's an understanding that when you go to a game, there's essentially a glass wall between the fans and the players. And the fans will say things and will taunt and will abuse people. I mean, we've been down at Tiger Cat games, and some of the stuff the fans say is, I'm certainly not going to repeat it now. And some of it, would be characterized in any other area of life as abusive. But there's that wall. And so it's almost a fantasy thing. You can go, you can pay your money, you can go to the game, and you can yell and scream at the players and get your frustrations out, and they can do their thing on the field, but they don't cross. And where you have the problems is when that glass wall breaks down. And this is one of those examples where you look at it and you say, you know what, there were scenes on there that you just showed where for moments there you were, hopefully everyone's okay, but you're legitimately concerned for the safety of some of those people. And by the same token, if some fans had decided to do something crazy, you could have been concerned for the safety of the players, or if fans had run onto the field. When these things happen, the question was, what happens to those players? These kind of things in sports, as soon as that glass wall is broken, sports breaks down as far as a fan and player interaction. There's going to have to be some serious discipline to these players. You can't do this. When this happens, you've created a problem. You've broken something you really can't undo very easily. And as I say now, you've got a situation. Put it this way: going to a game as a fan is not supposed to be a participatory event with the players you're watching, and that's what happened here. And this just there, the swinging a plastic milk crate. I mean, this could have gotten very, very, very bad. I mean, it's bad enough to watch as it is.
Oh, it is. I mean, you're seeing an entire team attack. It's unbelievable.
This could have been tragic one way or another. I mean, listen, we don't know. A fan could have had a knife or something in the stands, even just a jackknife, and got scared and used it. We don't know. It didn't happen, thankfully, but this is the kind of thing that nothing good can possibly come of an incident like this.
Now, St. Leonard head coach actually was reported in the Spec, said that this would not have happened if there was better crowd control. He had asked the head referee to get security to handle what he said were people drinking, insulting, throwing water bottles and water. Now, are fans out of control? I'll throw this one over to you, Paul.
Well, my understanding is that there was no security at this game. According to the Hamilton Hurricanes head officials, they say that they don't need to have security, specifically paid duty police officers, or off-duty police officers who are paid to do special duty at these games, providing security, because they weren't selling liquor at this game. At Iverwin, if you're selling liquor, or at any stadium, if you're selling liquor, you have to have off-duty cops there or security personnel there. In this case, they didn't.
And you know what, Linda? I mean, as far as what the coach has to say, if there is an imminent danger to the players, then I can understand. But otherwise, it's a cop-out. Fans taunting or fans harassing the players verbally, to me, that doesn't give a license for the players to go up into the stands. I mean, and if there is a clear danger to the players, if water bottles or not even necessarily water bottles, if something that if someone starts throwing bricks, I mean, who knows what, but if the players are in imminent danger, the response does not have to be that they go up and fight in the middle of the field. They go to the middle of the field and let the referees either kick the fans out of the stadium, which they have the ability to do as the referees, or to call off the game or whatever. But I fail to see how going up in the stands and creating a brawl is a defense for fans being abusive verbally to the players. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, apparently, too, the Cougars had already had a coach and player ejected, received a handful of unnecessary roughness and objectionable conduct penalties. So, I think they're already in a bad space. But to take it to this level, it is so hard to watch this and try to comprehend and understand how this can be sport at any level.
And from what we've seen on the tape, and again, I was not at the game, so I'm going by what I've seen on the tape as well. There has to be an amount of credit given to the coaching staff and the players of the Hamilton team for not jumping in there, because that would have exacerbated things and made things 10 times worse. The fact that I'm sure for the players who probably had friends and family up in the stands who were watching this, it was probably very difficult, but had they got in there, this thing would have been an even bigger mess than it was. So they deserve some congratulations for the restraint they showed.
Yeah, absolutely. Glenn Gibson, in Public Relations from Hamilton Hurricanes, we spoke to him and he had this to say. There obviously was no excuse for what happened. I would imagine the league will lay out severe repercussions to Montreal. I was very thankful for the self-control of the Hurricanes, as some of the players had family who were sitting in the area that they could just as easily have gone up to help out. And we know that that would have made for an even worse ending. So the fact that not one player from the Hurricanes went into the stands is really something to say about our local team.
Well, the local team, I mean, it does. It also says, I mean, I give credit in cases like this to the coaches, because the coaches are the ones who dictate in a lot of ways how the players are going to respond. So credit to the coaches for keeping control of their team, because I'm sure even, you know, we like to say that the local guys are all good guys and everything else, and I'm sure they are, but, you know, given their choice, I'm sure one or two, as you said, who had family there would have loved to have gone up there and tried to help out their family, but the coaches kept them in control. So I think they're the ones who really get a lot of the credit in this one.
The Hurricanes head office told me today that when things really went off the rails, the Hurricane coaches were actually able to restrain all the players from reacting, and the discipline was such that they were able to order them to go to the dressing room right away. And they told me that every single player complied, did that immediately, and that not a single Hurricane player or coach or official went up into the stands. They all headed right for the dressing room. Now, in terms of any investigation, it's possible that an investigation does open up at some point. While technically there's no active investigation right now because there's no complainant, police also said today that people who were involved in this are still thinking about it. They may still come forward and lay a formal complaint. It's also possible that the Hurricanes organization itself may approach the police and ask them to open a formal investigation. The Hurricanes are having a meeting at 5 o'clock today to look at all the different options and how they're going to deal with the league, how they're going to approach things with the police, how they're going to deal with things internally within the team. And then the final possibility is that Hamilton Police Chief Glenn DeCare himself decides to take a second look at this and come up with a course of action to determine what should be done. And really that's where things stand right now.
Now, Scott, can we end on your comments as to how do we prevent this from happening again?
Well, sports is by nature, I mean, part of the beauty of sports is that it's an emotional thing, and we develop passionate views for the teams we like and against the teams we don't like. One of the great things about sports, unlike a lot of other things in life, is that we actually feel something most of the time if we're a fan and if we're watching it. And that's one of the things that people love about it, is it's not a benign activity. If you're cheering, you feel something. But the point is that when you go to your kid's hockey game, when you go to a Tiger Cat game, you know, you can feel something, you can even say something, but there is a level, as we talked about before, that you have to show some restraint and you have to show some self-control. And when you cross that line, I mean, even if you're sitting in the stands, it's supposed to not be unlike watching it on TV, that there is a glass there, there's a wall, and you don't go past that. And the players, by the same way, don't come leaping into your living room. And it's not always easy, believe me. I mean, when you go to games, and as I say, I've stood on the sidelines at Tiger Cat games when they play the Argos on Labor Day. And I can tell you that some of the comments that are made, I would guarantee you that there are players on the Argos in those games that would like nothing more than to go up and beat one of the fans in Hamilton with their helmet, but they don't. They don't, because there is an understanding that does not happen in sports. That is not acceptable, and that's over the line. And so what the meaning is, this perhaps provides a refresher for a lot of people that, you know what, it can get away, but you can't let it. You have to have, in sports is about discipline too. You have to have the discipline that when someone's getting on you, even when you're down, even when you're passionate, even when you're emotional, you know what, that's just not part of the game. That's not something you can let happen. That's not part of your emotions and part of your passion you can let get away.
You have to know when to stop.
You have to know when to stop, and sports has to remain on the field. That's where it's played. It's on the field. It's not in the stands.
I thank you both very much for joining us today in studio for this edition of For the Record. I appreciate your comments, and of course we'll look for the outcome from the Ontario Football Conference. Now the Hamilton Hurricanes will play Ottawa for the championships on Sunday, 4 p.m. at Ivor Wynne. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. Now back to our election coverage here on Cable 14.